So something interesting and strange has been happening in the world of business very, very recently. And of course, as you might imagine, it has to do with the world's arguably most controversial CEO, but without question, the one who knows how to grab headlines the most, Elon Musk. Recently, it came out of the papers that Elon Musk was granted a $1 trillion pay package. And I imagine if you are anything like me, you would have read that and thought that is astonishingly unbelievable and moved on with your life. Because I think for a lot of us, we can't quite compute how much money is $1 trillion. Like if you had $1 trillion, how much money are we talking about? Well, for context, the GDP of Africa is 2.3, maybe $2.4 trillion. I think $2.9 trillion actually. So at about $1 trillion, that would be a third of the GDP of an entire continent. You understand that the GDP of South Africa in dollars is about $480 billion. He would be at about double the GDP of an entire country. The GDP, by the way, is not even the earnings from the revenues on taxes a country generates. It's the sum total of all economic activity that an economy is able to generate for a period of a year. The headlines wanted us to believe Elon Musk would be earning $1 trillion. When I first saw the article, the first thing I thought was, this can't be true. And then I realized the article was on, I think it was on Bloomberg or Financial Times. Therefore, I realized, well, this is a credible news source, so it can't be a lie. Then my second thought went, well, what does this mean for the state of the world we're in today? What does this mean for the state of capitalism? What does this mean for the future of the world? Now, for context, this is at a time when the world itself is struggling against global inequality, right? The idea that the earnings between people at the lowest rungs in society and the people at the highest strata of society, that gap is growing. Recently, on an episode on my podcast Ideas That Matter that I had with my friend John Chu, you can watch the episode if you click on the link here, by the way. He talks about why the wealthy keep getting wealthier. And he had a fantastic thesis that finally helped me understand it. And the very basic concept he made was that the wealth don't get wealthy on income, they get wealthy on assets. Secondly, the wealth get wealthy on those assets compounding over time. And so because they own assets and those assets compound over time, that means that the compounding of the assets allows them the ability to acquire more assets, which is why the wealth get wealthier. He then argued that it isn't necessarily the case that the poor get poorer, but it is the case that relative to the wealthy, the poorer are getting poorer, right? And I thought he made some great points. So what I thought I would do for you, and for those of you who asked the question, is get into this question about Elon Musk's $1 trillion pay package and what does it mean. I should tell you, by the way, that it is an incredibly complex matter. It predates this $1 trillion pay package story. It actually arcs back to the Delaware court case and the $56 billion that came out of that. But here are high level, the first few things you need to know. Number one, the pay package actually is 100% an at-risk restricted stock grant. That's the first thing you need to know. What this means that it is entirely contingent upon Elon Musk achieving 12 unprecedented moonshot milestones. There are a couple of words that you've got to double click on. First, unprecedented, which means the goals he's been set have never been set before. Second, moonshot. Moonshot is a term that comes from innovation. It means that the goals are so far out that he would have to be stretching reality to hit the goals in the first place. So to be clear, this isn't a pay package where the board of Tesla said to Elon, here's $1 trillion in actual cash. That's not what happened. But what has happened here is the board of Tesla has said, well, what we're going to do is we're going to set a set of goals for you, which if you achieve, the total for the value you would earn as a stock option would equal $1 trillion. It should say, by the way, that these goals include him growing the Tesla market cap. Market capitalization is the share price multiplied by the number of shares in issue to $8.5 trillion. As at current, the Tesla share price is circa $1.6 trillion. And they say that that will not start until he first hits the $2.5 trillion. So he's first got to create about $900 billion worth of economic value before the grant or the stock options actually begin to take effect. And then he's got to then go from the 2.5 trillion to the circa 8.5 trillion over the period of the next 10 years, which is the second point that you need to understand. This is not here's $1 trillion paid to you up front. He's got to earn this money over a period of 10 years, hitting 12 different unprecedented goals on about 5 different operational levers, and that's excluding the levers on the market cap, which we will get into in a moment. So, a couple of things to say. There was a lot of contention around this at board level, as it is understood, and there still continues to be some contention now. The 2025 package, where he was supposed to earn about $56 billion, was strategically and procedurally engineered to overcome the actual issues that he's had before. Right. So he had issues before with the arrangements that he'd entered into with the board when the company was still domiciled in Delaware as their head office. And those issues meant basically that he was going to earn about $56 billion. In fact, and when he did do, because as I've said to you, the market cap is not about 1 point something trillion dollars, so he well above the 650 achieved the target. When he was supposed to earn the $56 billion, there was then an issue, and some activist shareholders took the matter to court. You remember, he was supposed to earn this $56 billion at around the same time he was taking over X, which at the time he was buying for about $40 billion, give or take $1 billion or so above that number. So, what does this effectively mean? Well, it means the following. Here are the targets that Elon Musk actually has to hit if he's going to make the targets. So first, it's the potential value of this whole thing is about $1 trillion. And it's a future value into the next 10 years if he hits all the targets. The net value, however, of the award, right, accounting for the repayments that he's got to make to the company, is at about $878 billion. So first, because there are options, there's a repayment option there that he's got to make to the company. And the net of that would be about $878 billion. Let's talk a bit about the structure now. It's structured in such a way that what the board has actually done is they've given Elon Musk the ability to and the opportunity to earn 423.7 million Tesla shares. Let me just explain very quickly for any of you who perhaps don't understand how stock options work and how share options work. First, it's an option. And often the option is attached to a performance or some sort of performative condition, right? So you've got to hit something for something to be the case. So for instance, you join company X, you're an executive, a CEO, etc. And the board says, well, the share price of the company is at $1. And what we're going to do is we're going to pay you a certain amount of your salary in base pay, right? But if you take the company from $1 to $3, we are going to give you options worth X amount, right? The options mean when you get to $3, you can exercise those options, which vest as shares at $3, and then you get your money out. This is incredibly complex. Very recently, you would have seen an instance where in South Africa, Phuthuma Hanyele, who is the CEO of, I want to say Naspers, on the board of Process, I think, earned, as it was reported, circa R250 million. A part of that is in stock options. And often what you find with executives is they have to vest their options, in other words, actually trade the options so that they can pay the tax that those options attract. Because when the options vest, in some jurisdictions in the world, the tax authorities say, now that the options are vested, you've effectively earned the money, therefore pay me the money that you've earned, whether or not that money is in cash or shares, I don't care, is what a lot of tax authorities in the world say. There's lots of contention about whether or not this should be the case. I have my own views on it, but we in our firm actually like options when we're making and doing transactions in companies that we're either looking into buying into, taking a share in, or acquiring, because what options do is they align interests between the board, the management team, the shareholders, and broadly the stakeholders in the marketplace. Right, so you'll set a set of suspensive conditions around these options, but the basic thing you want to do is to make sure that everybody shares a destiny. That if we all go from this place to that place and we achieve these conditions, then those options should vest.
So let's talk about those 12 tranches. Listen to this, because when I read this in the legal papers, I thought it was very interesting. So the Tesla plan, as I said earlier, agrees that the market cap should reach $8.5 trillion for all the shares to vest. Currently, the market cap is at $1.5 trillion, and the milestones are set at every $500 billion increments, beginning at $2.5 billion. So I said 1.6 earlier, I was incorrect. So the market cap as at the time I was doing my research was at $1.4 trillion for Tesla. When the market cap gets to $2.5 trillion in valuation, then the plan kicks in, and then at every $500 billion additive to that, until the $8.5 trillion, different portions of these stock options begin to take effect. The next thing you need to know is that they actually are tied not only to the financial performance of the company, but also to the operational performance of the company. And I got to tell you, these operational targets are crazy. Like, if Elon Musk is able to hit these operational targets, if you've ever seen Stranger Things, you remember the thesis behind Stranger Things, quite basically, is that the world exists in a parallel with the universe, and that if you flatten the world, you can pierce through from one universe to another. I think if Elon Musk is able to hit these numbers, he'll be piercing through this universe into a parallel universe. Because let me tell you what some of these operational milestones are. First, on vehicles. Recall, this is Tesla. They say he's got to reach a target of 20 million vehicles delivered per year. For context, it's about 1.8 million vehicles delivered a month. There's 4 weeks in a month. 4 by 4 is 16. So that's about 450,000 vehicles Tesla would have to deliver a week. There's 5 working days in a week. It's about 100,000 cars that Tesla would have to deliver a day. There's 10 working hours in a day. Tesla would have to deliver 10,000 cars per hour. 60 minutes in every hour. Tesla would have to deliver 1,666.7.666666666 cars every single minute of every single hour, give or take. When you understand the numbers in that quantum, you realize how many units 20 million cars is. And they say he's got to reach that as a target per annum. It's crazy. Crazy. It's even more crazy when you consider that the Tesla vehicle performance has been reclining, right? It's been on the decline. Those numbers have been regressing. They've been going backwards. It's not as if they're gaining market share. He's agreed to meeting this number in a world where he's competing with BYD, which in many material markets, set aside the US, because I think that there are tariff and trade and restriction issues in the US, but in many markets, BYD is kicking the shit out of Tesla. So how he hits these numbers, I don't know. So I said to you, Stranger Things, parallel universe. That's the first target, is on the vehicle deliveries. Then they said on the robo-taxis, he's got to deploy 1 million robo-taxis into commercial operation. You recall that this whole issue now of autonomous driving taxis is quite a thing. I was in the US middle of the year and very recently, about 2-3 months ago. And when I was in LA, I saw a number of these like autonomous moving around things. One of them is like a little cart thing that goes around and delivers food. It's the strangest thing, I've got to tell you. It is like the strangest thing to see this autonomous thing moving around to deliver somebody's package, and it goes right past homeless people. It's like, it feels like I'm in an episode of a movie about the future. I don't know, Star Trek or something, where there is like opulence and poverty right next to each other. But they say to compete with some of the companies which have been first to market in that autonomous space, that autonomous taxi space, he's got to deploy 1 million robo-taxis. You know those humanoids, those Optimus robots? I call them Prime, Optimus Prime. But those Optimus robots, you would have seen them recently being showcased. Some of them are dancing now. They're able to do some fairly complex stuff. Well, they say, as a precondition to him earning this, he's got to deliver 1 million Optimus humanoid robots to consumers. 1 million. 1 million. I think that's actually doable. And then on autonomous driving, this one I thought was interesting. They say he's got to achieve 10 million active full service driving subscriptions. 10 million. And you know what subscriptions mean, right? Subscriptions mean it's repetitive. So that 10 million isn't 10 million customers. For those of you watching this who don't understand perhaps necessarily how subscription businesses work, that 10 million means net of churn at 10 million. Net of churn. So you ask me, do I think Elon Musk will earn $1 trillion? I don't know. But here are the final thoughts that I will leave you with. First, it's pretty clear that we've crossed a Rubicon in terms of compensation for executives. We've been talking about the distance between executive compensation and labor compensation in business for a long time. This is precedent setting, even by the wildest imagination. And when the time comes, whatever it is the targets that Elon Musk does hit, and he claims against that target, I can almost guarantee that you should expect there to be some litigation around this. I can't imagine activist shareholders won't have something to say at that time. But we'll get there and we'll see. Second, there is no question that there should be a relationship between risk and reward. You know, in business, you take several risks, right? So for investors who put money in, they take financial risks. For operators who run businesses, you take operational risk, right? Or what we call in venture capital, execution risk. If somebody's going to take the capital risk, who's going to take the execution risk? And I think on this is perhaps where the board of Tesla is set in a rather invidious position. But it is an interesting position nonetheless. And I can't imagine this would have passed if they were applying the King Codes of Governance, the latest version, King 5. But what the board of Tesla basically said was this. The board of Tesla felt that there was a key man risk that is tethered to the operational availability and execution ability of Elon Musk. Simply, that nobody else could do the job that Elon Musk can do. This is what the board felt. And the board felt that he had several other places he can apply himself. He can be doing this at XAI. He can be at Neuralink. He can be at SpaceX, right? And these are just the companies I'm thinking about that he owns. He can be at the Boring Company, right? So there are many other places the board said he can actually be doing this. The fact that he's doing it at Tesla is something he should be rewarded for. And so the board felt to reduce that operational risk, it really is important that they pay him what the board felt, as they say in these papers, was fair and just compensation, not only for the key man risk that he is, but also for his supreme ability to execute. We have jumped into a parallel universe around how some of these are structured. And I can absolutely guarantee, as we sit and as you're watching this, somebody is in court litigating whether or not this agreement should be allowed to stand. And somebody's in court litigating that if this agreement is allowed to stand, it's going to be detrimental for the future of the world, for the future of enterprise, for the future of free markets, and for the future of capitalism. My view is that it's important that risk and reward are tethered. I genuinely believe that risk and reward must be tethered. But I don't know that a pay package of this size makes sense. That notwithstanding, I will say this. Kudos to Elon Musk for even signing this agreement. Because, brother, if you believe you can hit these numbers, then we are in for a whirlwind of a time in the world. Lastly, some of you watching this will go, listen, $8.5 trillion valuation for a company is a lot of money, and you're right. I would have agreed with you a year ago, 2 years ago. But we just watched NVIDIA hit $5 trillion. So the idea that a company as complex as Tesla, with complex production processes, complex manufacturing operation, supreme execution ability, not only in terms of the CEO, but the management team and the rest of the leadership executive. A strong strategy, which I assure you they've got. Deep capital that they can deploy into that strong strategy. And most importantly, a unique advantage in terms of their ability to leverage autonomous vehicles and autonomous instruments with sophisticated software and AI at scale. You put all of that together, I think an $8.5 trillion valuation is not only possible, but I think you can actually hit it before 10 years. But I'm just a guy wearing a pink suit, sharing a video on YouTube. What do I know? All right, thank you very much. Leave with me your thoughts and comments about what you think of this. I'll see you on the other side of this. Cheers.